Cyberattacks are not just leaking data anymore. They are spilling drinking water, they are leaking ammonia, and they are timed to election day. The federal indictment unsealed this month in United States versus Dubrovnik says a Russia-aligned cyber group called the Cyber Army of Russia, or Reborn, or TARR, logged into public water utilities in the United States and opened the pumps. Hundreds of thousands of gallons of treated drinking water overflowed. The same group, according to the indictment, logged into a meatpacking plant in California, shut down the refrigeration, spoiled thousands of pounds of meat, and triggered an ammonia leak that forced the plant to evacuate for hours. These are not metaphors. These are not worst-case scenarios from a tabletop exercise. These are charges. This is page 1 of the indictment, United States versus Dubrovnik. The case caption, the named defendants, the alleged conduct, all of it is now in the public record. Every few years, the cybersecurity industry has a conversation about whether critical infrastructure attacks are real or theoretical. The 2010 Stuxnet attack on Iranian centrifuges was real but targeted. The 2015 and 2016 Ukrainian grid attacks were real, but not on U.S. soil. Colonial Pipeline in 2021 was ransomware with physical consequences, but the pathway was opportunistic, not strategic. This indictment is different. It alleges an organized campaign over multiple years against U.S. water, food processing, and energy facilities directed at least in part by Russian government or intelligence officers, with stolen data flowing back to the FSB. The reason the document is worth reading is not that it proves any one technical claim, it is that it collapses 3 categories the defensive community has been carefully trying to keep separate: hacktivism, cybercrime, and state-sponsored cyber warfare, into one group. CARR, according to this indictment, is all 3 simultaneously. The Cyber Army of Russia Reborn presents itself publicly as a patriotic hacktivist collective. On its public-facing Telegram channel, it claims to target enemies of Russia. At its peak, the indictment says the group had more than 100 members and over 75,000 followers on Telegram, including juveniles. The propaganda matters. CARR ran videos exaggerating the impact of its attacks, amplifying them on social media, and using the attention to recruit members and raise funds. From the outside, the collective was meant to look grassroots. Internally, according to the indictment, CARR members received direct instructions from individuals believed to be Russian government or intelligence officers and shared stolen data back with the FSB. That is the line that collapses. The hacktivist logo on the outside, the GRU or FSB adjacent tasking on the inside. The indictment is explicit on this. Page 8 describes overt acts by CARR members coordinating directly with FSB officers, not as inference, not as analyst attribution, but as charged conduct. The water utility allegations come next. According to the indictment, CARR members compromised multiple public water systems in the United States. The specific allegations are worth saying carefully: altering pump settings, changing tank levels, and triggering wells. The result, again according to the charging document, was hundreds of thousands of gallons of treated drinking water overflowing. Overflow is not the worst thing a compromised water system can do. A sophisticated attacker with full SCADA access can tamper with chemical feeds. Overflow at this scale is the visible, photographable front-of-the-newspaper version of the same kind of access. Chemical feed tampering is the version that does not photograph well. That is the version every water operator is now meant to be thinking harder about. The indictment explicitly frames these incidents as creating a threat to public health and safety. That language is careful. Drinking water utilities operate on safety thresholds and redundant systems. An overflow that wastes water is one thing. Well, an overflow that depressurizes a system, creates back siphonage, or forces operators to bypass normal treatment is a different category of problem. What the charging document establishes is that the access was real, not claimed, not probed, not demonstrated at a conference. Real on U.S. soil against real utility operators. The California meatpacking allegation is the one that is hardest to explain away as hacktivism theater. According to the indictment, attackers compromised the facility's control systems, shut down refrigeration, and spoiled thousands of pounds of meat. So far, an economic attack, then the ammonia leak. Industrial meatpacking uses anhydrous ammonia as a refrigerant. When refrigeration systems are tampered with outside of safe operating ranges, ammonia can vent. When ammonia vents, it is immediately an occupational hazard for anybody inside the facility. The plant evacuated for hours. This is where the indictment leaves data theft behind entirely. You cannot undo an ammonia evacuation with a ransom payment. You cannot put the workers back in the building with a patch. The attack crossed a line that the defensive community has talked about for 20 years without, until now, a named indicted group to point to. The indictment documents a sustained campaign, not opportunistic hits, against SCADA systems across water, oil and gas, manufacturing, and waste facilities. One defendant, according to the indictment, authored a manual to train other members on how to conduct these attacks. Think about what a training manual means. It means the group was building institutional knowledge. It means one successful intrusion became a documented procedure that other members could execute. That is the difference between a cyber collective and a cyber organization. CARR, according to the charges, was the second thing. Now to the oil and gas allegation, which is the single most operationally dangerous claim in the document. One defendant, the indictment says, instructed co-conspirators to disable alarms and raise temperatures at an oil and gas facility. Specifically, and here the indictment quotes the defendant, to increase the probability of a real accident. I'm going to read that again. The alleged operational intent was to cause a real accident, the kind that injures people, causes a fire or explosion, produces a chemical release at a real U.S. facility by way of a cyber intrusion. That sentence is the one that most clearly takes this case out of cybercrime and into something the charging document handles as an attack on public safety. In parallel with the industrial attacks, the indictment says CARR conducted DDoS attacks against U.S. election-related websites on Election Day during the 2022 midterms. And, per the indictment, planned coordinated attacks ahead of the 2024 U.S. elections. Page 15 of the indictment lays out the Election Day DDoS conduct as overt acts, specific targets, specific dates, specific coordination, all listed in the charging document itself. DDoS against election infrastructure does not change vote counts. Election officials have been clear about this for years. What it does is degrade public trust on the single day public trust matters most. It is information warfare in the old sense of the phrase, against the ability of the democratic system to be seen as functioning. CARR's alleged targeting of election sites on the day of the election, according to the indictment, is the clearest signal that this was not a profit-motivated operation. There is no ransom in knocking over the Secretary of State's website for an afternoon. There is only disruption, and disruption on election day has a different meaning than disruption on any other day. The indictment does not stop at infrastructure attacks. It also alleges a large-scale identity theft and credential resale operation, databases of driver's licenses, emails, and passwords offered for sale, and publicly posted compromised account credentials for consumer services, Disney Plus among them. The Disney Plus detail sounds petty next to the ammonia leak. It is not petty in the indictment's logic. It is evidence of how the organization monetized the non-strategic portion of its access. The infrastructure attacks provided strategic value and propaganda. The credential theft provided cash and recruitment. Both streams ran in parallel. Here is why this matters more than any single allegation. The defensive community has spent years drawing careful lines. Hacktivists get one playbook. Treat it as a public relations threat. Harden your exposed interfaces. Don't feed the trolls. Cybercriminals get another playbook. Build detection for initial access. Segment your network. Assume ransomware. State-sponsored attackers get a third, also nation-state threat intelligence, coordinated vendor disclosure, government-to-government pressure. CARR, according to the indictment, is all three. Hacktivist-branded Telegram channel, criminal credential resale, state-directed operations with data flowing to the FSB, one organization running three playbooks at the same time. If the defender is treating the hacktivist-looking traffic as noise and treating the criminal-looking traffic as ransomware triage and treating the state-looking traffic as nation-state priority, the defender is splitting their attention three ways against a single adversary. That is the thing this indictment changes. It names a group that does not respect the categories the defensive community uses. So three things for anyone in this audience who has to act on this. One, if you operate OT or SCADA for water, food processing, oil and gas, or waste management, the indictment is an asset inventory of what a determined Russia-aligned adversary is willing to touch. Pump settings, tank levels, refrigeration controls, alarm systems. Add those to the things you test during red team engagements. It's not as a last item, but as a first item. Two, the categorical collapse means your threat model for hacktivist-branded activity should include the possibility that the same infrastructure is feeding a state intelligence consumer. Traffic from a group with a Telegram channel full of memes may still be reporting back to the FSB. Three, the training manual detail that one CARR member wrote a how-to for the others is what institutionalization looks like. Expect more of it. Expect junior members being onboarded into techniques that used to require specialized nation-state tradecraft. The point of this whole exercise is not to scare anyone. It is to make sure the operator running a small water plant in Pennsylvania and the security engineer looking at SOC alerts in San Antonio are reading the same threat model. because the facility itself is the target now, not the data inside it. The plant, the basin, the pipeline, the refrigeration loop, the thing that, if it goes wrong, ends up on the local news. Cyber attacks that spill drinking water and leak ammonia are not a future threat. According to the United States versus Dubernova indictment, they are a thing that has already happened multiple times on U.S. soil, conducted by a group that has been indicted for it. The line between hacktivism and cybercrime and state-sponsored cyber warfare for this one group has collapsed. It may not be the last group where it collapses. The defender's job, increasingly, is not to data protect a network from a single category of attacker. It is to physics protect a facility from an adversary that has access to every category at once. If you work in any of the sectors named in the indictment, pull the PDF. Read the allegations, share it with your operators, your safety engineers, your incident response team, and your board. It is not comfortable reading. That is the point of it. And hey, if this kind of analysis is useful to you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We cover cybersecurity, critical infrastructure, policy, and the threat landscape in a way that is meant to be actionable, not just alarming. Hit that subscribe button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and I will see you in the next one.